The great Quincy Jones.
The things you do to me.
We are everything you need to know about this historic election. Do not miss it.
All right, Greg.
Well, I guess I'm not special. You know what? Let's do this.
In your face, Harold.
Yeah. You know what, Harold? Eat this. We compiled a list of towns and communities from 2020 named Harold and how they voted. Harold, Minnesota, went for Trump. Harold, Kansas, went for Trump. Harold, Missouri, Trump. Harold, Kentucky, Trump. Harold, Florida, Trump. Harold, California, Biden. In your face, Harold.
How do you feel about that, Harold?
I feel like it's in my face.
Okay, it's all right. We'll have much more to come all night, and then, of course, we'll be back tomorrow. That's it for us. Special coverage of the election starts right now.
The presidential election, live on Fox News.
We will put America first, and we will fight, fight, fight.
We have an election to win.
Get Democracy 24 coverage you won't see anywhere else. Plus, special analysis from the voices America trusts. The moment is here. The presidential election, live on Fox News. America is watching. Democracy 24, your freedom.
From the endless deserts of the West to the fall colors of the East, this is America.
I'm thrilled to be back in this incredible state with the thousands of proud, hardworking American patriots.
I love our country with all my heart. I see a nation that is ready to move forward.
Oh, there's a nice crowd.
Good evening, America!
America has been hard at work,
It's going to depend on turning out voters.
making crucial pit stops and crossing paths.
Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago?
My presidency will not be a continuation of Joe Biden's presidency.
The stakes have rarely been higher.
I will end inflation, I will stop the invasion, and I will bring back the American dream.
I believe in the fundamental freedom of Americans to make decisions about their own bodies.
And the battleground is all around us.
Good to be back in North Carolina.
In Holland, Michigan. Hello, Scranton.
We love you, Las Vegas.
From the hollows to the high rises, every vote matters.
This election is one of the most important elections I feel in my lifetime.
We have to vote. It's a must now.
Today, democracy is on display.
Let us show what we stand for. Freedom and endless possibilities.
November 5th will be the most important day in the history of our country.
Democracy 24 Election Night starts now.
It is 6 p.m. on the East Coast, and election night is in full swing. Welcome to our special coverage of Fox News Democracy 24. I'm Brett Baer.
And I'm Martha McCallum. Tonight is the night Americans across the country are voting. Our first major poll closings are now just moments away. Magic number, of course, is 270. That's how many electoral votes are needed to clinch the U.S. presidency. Races centered on 7 battleground states, and in them are 93 votes that are toss-up. They are up for grabs, and they are more than enough to put either candidate over the top. And that will start to play out just minutes from now.
Georgia is the first battleground to close its polls. The Secretary of State there expects to have results tonight. The biggest prize of the night is arguably Pennsylvania. Polls close there at 8 o'clock, but a technical glitch in one county is prompting officials there to extend voting hours. In fact, officials have extended voting hours at precincts in several battleground states at this hour. More on that in a moment.
So really, one of the early stories here is the early vote numbers, and they are absolutely astounding. More than 84 million Americans cast their votes early. Many of them were in the swing states that will decide the race for the White House.
It's obviously not just the presidency we're watching. There's a lot at stake in the House and the Senate. First, on the Senate side of the Congress, there are 51 Democrats, including 4 independents aligned with them, and 49 Republicans. The GOP needs a net gain of 2 seats to take the outright majority. If former President Trump wins his race, Republicans would need just 1 pickup to flip the U.S. Senate because the vice president can cast the tie-breaking vote.
All right, let's go over to the House side of the Capitol, where Republicans hold a razor-thin majority, 220 seats. Democrats have 212. 3 vacant seats are likely to remain in party hands. With every seat up for grabs tonight, Democrats only need a net gain of 4 to take control of the House of Representatives.
Special team Fox coverage. Our reporters are standing by in the battlegrounds and really all across the country. First, let's go to senior national correspondent Aisha Hasni. She's at the Trump campaign headquarters in West Palm Beach, Florida. Good evening, Aisha.
Brett and Martha, good evening to you. Here at the big party, the watch party, not a lot of people here just yet. Things are just getting underway. They haven't even put the food out just yet. I'm told, though, there is a very impressive coffee bar here, which might be an indication that we might be up late tonight. We'll see how that goes. The former president is actually at home in Mar-a-Lago. He's going to be watching the results from there. He's surrounded by family and close associates, including, we just learned, Elon Musk is with him in Mar-a-Lago tonight. Earlier today, when the former president went to go vote here in West Palm Beach, he told the press that he was feeling very confident and that he had no regrets about the way that he ran this campaign. And he got a little introspective for a moment, sort of taking it all in, right? This final 3rd presidential run. And he said that he was feeling a little bit sad, but fulfilled by it all. Now, the campaign, as you mentioned, is very, very happy about those early vote turnout numbers. This was all part of the plan. They wanted to hit that early on. They wanted that to be the game changer all along. And they're looking at states like Arizona, Nevada, and North Carolina, where those early vote turnouts are exceptionally high. Registering new Republicans instead of cannibalizing those Republicans are hoping will come out in full force today. Trump says that he has not prepared a speech for tonight, that he's going to wing it, and he does not even want to talk about his transition team yet, possibly because there's a little bit of superstition about that, but he's definitely being a little careful about what might happen tonight, hoping that we will have results by tonight. We'll see. Right, Martha?
We will see. Aisha Hasni, live in West Palm Beach. Aisha, thanks.
So now let's go to our senior White House correspondent, Jackie Heinrich, who is at Harris campaign headquarters at Howard University this evening in Washington. Hi, Jackie.
Hey, Martha, you can hear the mic checks behind me. People are starting to trickle in, but make no mistake, nobody here is really feeling very comfortable tonight. The campaign maintains that they have multiple paths to 270, but the campaign manager, Jen O'Malley Dillon, said that the margins are very close. She's never seen them closer. This could be a historically close election. There has been a massive effort to get out the vote, get people to the polls, and get them to stay in line because they saw that high Republican participation in early voting, and that really spooked them because it skewed the results that typically show Democrats leading in the early vote in previous cycles, with more Republicans voting on Election Day. There is a lot of concern about Pennsylvania. I was speaking to one person close with the vice president who said that it makes it difficult for either candidate to get to 270 if you lose Pennsylvania, but for Harris, it puts extra pressure on states like Michigan, North Carolina, Georgia, and Nevada. And that might be why we're getting our first glimpse of hard data from campaign officials that focus on turnout in those states, including young voters and Puerto Rican voters. In Philadelphia, they say positive signs there tonight, guys.
Jackie, thank you.
All right, throughout the night, we're going to have this ticker on the bottom of your screen, and it will have the votes that are coming in. Right now, we have New Hampshire and Indiana, some votes, early votes coming in. Throughout the night, you'll see different races flip, including the presidential race. On the side of the screen, sometimes we'll have the Fox News voter analysis, poll numbers, and we are going to dig into those.
Yeah, so obviously at this point, these are just little trickles that are coming in, but we are starting to get them, and they'll be live on the bottom of your screen. We're also getting new information from our Fox News voter analysis surveys. Let's go to Sandra Smith, who is going to explain all of this to us, and also which issues they are tracking and what voters are saying as they have been voting.
We've been looking forward to this data. We've been collecting this. This is different than exit polls, Brett and Martha. This is really going to give our viewers an inside look at not only who voters in all 50 states voted for, but why. So we reached out online, on landlines, on cell phones. We did this. This was done for Fox. The NORC at the University of Chicago surveyed 120 voters all over the country leading up to and on Election Day. And you will not see this anywhere else. And we have some new technology that will feature this data that we are just getting a first look at right now. So let's dig in to some of our key findings so far. This could be the story of big change. What we are seeing as far as this analysis is concerned so far, people are looking for big change in this election. Those that responded, 26% says they're looking for total upheaval. 56% say they're looking for substantial change. So you're talking about 8 in 10 voters that want big change. So keep watching that. That could be a big data point to follow throughout the evening. Why do they want that big change? So many say they don't like the direction this country is going in. Look at this number. Those that believe that we're moving in the wrong direction in this country, 70% of voters. Why is that key? That is 10 points higher than it was in 2020. So keep that in mind. I mentioned some of our new technology. This is our heat map. It gives you a sense of where that sentiment is felt by voters all over the country. You see some of those darker red areas in the Northwest, some of these redder areas throughout the Sun Belt. Keep that in mind as we move through this evening. Want to finish up with this, Brett and Martha. We know we've been watching the economy, but one question to voters is, who best do you see to handle the economy that so many are not happy with how it's going? Those that say Harris, 41%. Those that say Trump, 49%. So while he still has the edge, Brett and Martha, we have been seeing, leading up to Election Day, Harris narrowing the gap there. So that is really good information as we head into the night. And by the way, as we move into the night and polls start closing, we will be able to break down these answers by who they voted for. So we'll have that for you throughout the night.
You know,
Brett,
Sandra,
Martha?
it's really interesting. It's massive. Yeah. It's 120,000 voters who have answered this poll that's rolling for a number of days through this afternoon. So it really gives you a sense beyond exit polls.
We'll be back with more. No, and again, everybody keeps asking, how is it different than the exit polls? This was supposed to be and is a better reflection of how we vote today, right? We keep talking about all this early voting. The exit polls would reach out to the voters as they were casting their ballots on Election Day. Well, we know that's not how so many Americans vote today, right, Brett, Martha? So this should better reflect voter sentiment all over the country.
All right.
Sandra, thank you.
All right.
Bill Hemmer is at the billboard, the first of the night, which will be a lot of it.
Good evening to you. You ready for
innovative technology you have this time?
Yes, indeed. We got a little bit of stuff here. At the end, I'll stand on my head, too, so a little bonus, all right? So we're getting ready for the marathon. A good evening, everybody at home. Okay, some of the vote is now coming in now in places like Indiana that are in the Eastern time zone. Not a ton. You see the counties start to fill in. Should not be much of a question here. Trump won easily there in Indiana. So, too, in Kentucky. A little bit coming in right now. This is Kenton County, by the way. Kenton County is right across the river from Cincinnati. You got about 36% of the vote coming in now. And what we'll be able to do throughout the night is find out how Trump did this year versus how he did in 2020 and how he did back in 2016. So we're going to have a lot of data points throughout the night to see how that goes. But really, it is all about this down here. You see that? We're going to be tracking this throughout the evening because this is the magic number. Let's go ahead and look at the path to 270. We'll go ahead and show what we've done here, okay? We've taken Nebraska's 2nd district and given that to Harris. So as of now, barring any surprises, Harris starts out the night at 226 and Trump starts at 219, and it's the race to 270. So based on some of the early vote and some of the polling we've done so far, we're going to take Georgia, the peach state, that Trump narrowly lost 4 years ago, and go ahead and give that to the red team. Also in the American Southeast, we're going to take North Carolina. Again, 16 electoral votes. That'll go also to Trump tonight, which gives him 32 in the Southeast and takes him to 251. What happens to the blue wall? We're going to show you a lot of history throughout the night, let you know how the folks vote in the upper Midwest. At the moment, Michigan, 15 electoral votes. We're going to go ahead and give that to Harris. And also Wisconsin, its neighbor, at 10 electoral votes, which will give her 25 more in her pile and takes her also 251 to 251. Now we've got 3 more on the board. Late tonight, we're going to be in the American Southwest, and we'll see how fast Arizona counts, okay? So Arizona, based on some of the polling we've seen and the early vote out there, we'll go ahead and give the 11 electoral votes to Trump. Again, none of this is official. We're just playing this out based on the way we see it prior to the vote today. Also in the Southwest, we see Nevada. It's been a real toss-up, and Democrats have dominated out there in Nevada. But the 6 electoral votes right now, we'll go ahead and give that to Trump for this time at this point in the evening. And that leaves really a state that has gotten more attention and more focus than anywhere else in the country. There's a reason for that. 19 electoral votes. Trump won it in 2016. He lost it in 2020, but just by a hair both times. If Harris is able to win the 19 electoral votes, that would be enough, right on the number at 270. But maybe the folks in Pennsylvania aren't feeling it tonight. If that's the case, perhaps later tonight, into tomorrow, maybe late Wednesday or Thursday, who knows, depending on how they count. Maybe Pennsylvania is a flipper this time, and they respond to the message about energy and fracking on behalf of Donald Trump. And if that's the case, under this scenario, he would go back to the Oval Office at 287. But at this point in the night, we know nothing. We just know that all these 7 states are anybody's game. And this does not account for the possibility that there could be surprises. Iowa, New Hampshire, Virginia, New Mexico. That's why they play the games, and that's why they vote. Let's go ahead and clear this, and I'll give it back to Brett and Martha.
I mean, it's not that
next time I'll stand on my head.
It's not that we don't know anything. I mean, we know some things. Okay. But I love that, and there's more toys to come.
We got a few things that will unveil slowly, and we'll see how they work out through the course
of the night. The
and you folks
periodic
can,
table.
Yeah, and you folks can gauge it, okay? You can judge it. It's like Dancing with the Stars, 1 through 10. Score it as you like.
That sounds good.
Great
We'll
stuff,
see you in a minute.
Bill.
Right on.
Thank you very much. So let's bring in our panel. Britt Hume, Dana Perino, Harold Ford Jr., Kellyanne Conway, and Karl Rove. What a great group we have to go through this evening. And as Bill was saying, Britt, we are just getting started. Those are all sort of just possible scenarios that we're looking at. How are you feeling tonight? What are you looking forward to?
I'm feeling about the way I felt about 3 hours ago, like we don't know anything. But we do have this enormous poll, which is telling us, as was described, why people are voting and so on. But the bottom line, or the top line on this poll, is it's saying the same thing that every other poll we've seen for it in aggregate, basically, is too close to call, toss up, coin toss, all the rest of it. So here we are. We start out the evening having taken the biggest poll, and maybe the biggest poll in history, 115,000, 120,000 people in the sample, and we're right where we've been. Too close to call, coin toss.
Dana, 30,000 feet, we're finally here. There's a lot of talk about are the right kind of voters showing up for each party in the key places, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, a lot of anecdotal stuff. But as far as hard numbers, we're going to have to wait till the raw vote total comes in. The biggest indication may be Georgia at 7 o'clock.
And we live in a time, thank you, technology, that we want instant gratification for a lot of things. You want dinner right now, you order it up on your phone, it's delivered 4 minutes later. We are not going to get that kind of service tonight. It's going to take a little while, but I'm glad that we're all together, and this is a way that Americans can say, okay, what are we looking for in the change that we're asking for? What do the 70% of people who say the country's going in the wrong direction, how are they going to vote? And also, you have 2 different campaign styles. You have President Trump. He was ruthless, fierce, energetic, talked to everybody, doing everything he possibly can. And it may work. And then her campaign was very cautious. It was truncated, short. And she was almost a quiet campaigner. And it may work. And the other thing I'm looking at tonight is This is a very different election for all of us for how people are getting their information. There's a lot of different ways to get it. You can find a lot of different ways here at the Fox News Channel and all of our other properties, but that is going to play a role in this results tonight.
Yeah, Harold, when Dana says that about all the different ways people get their information, I'm thinking about the podcast, how many hours these candidates have spent talking to people that I think a lot of Americans had never heard of before these candidates started speaking with them. But we have a little bit of, information from this Fox News voter analysis that we're pouring over. What's really standing out to you tonight, Harold, as you look at all this?
First off, good to be with everybody. Second, if you're in line to go vote or you have family or friends in line to go vote, please vote. We want everybody to vote. 3, Georgia and North Carolina, what I'm going to be most focused on here over the next hour or two. We will get early numbers there. All of the demographics we're looking at, older, younger voters, the gender gap, male and female, how many black voters might be voting for Donald Trump versus for Kamala Harris. I think it will give us some telltale as to how the rest of the night could go. And then Michigan. That's the first of the blue wall states we're likely to get something from. So I got a lot of notes here, and I'm ready.
Kellyanne, one of the things, the Fox News voter analysis is a poll. It's a massive poll. But when we get raw vote totals, that is going to kind of verify or check where we are in those numbers and those answers.
No doubt. But Brett and Martha, nice to be with everyone. What I love about the Fox News voter analysis is we're not obsessed with the horse race numbers because the voters will have the final say on that tonight. You're asking questions of Americans that Americans are asking each other and themselves when they go into that ballot box. And that's what I appreciate. 60% are saying their top issues are economy, inflation, immigration, border security. 70% are saying we're off on the wrong track. Very few are saying they're not worried at all about gas and grocery prices, about the cost of living. They feel like they're not getting ahead. Now, we've known that last data point for years. What's unique about this survey is people are projecting forward. They don't think it's going to improve much. And so, look, voters ask themselves a very simple question. Do I like the way things are going? Should I stay with the course, maybe go for 4 more, in this case with Kamala, or do I want to change? She tried to be the change agent, distancing herself from Biden. One big thing I'm watching tonight, folks, is she going to do as well as Biden did in Erie, in Northampton County, in Bucks County? Right now, she's behind him in Jewish Americans. She's behind him in Hispanic. She's behind him in some of these key counties of these 7 swing states. She has to at least put the Biden-Harris coalition back together to make it tonight.
Yeah, and Carl, when we were sitting here, or I guess we were over there in 2020, Biden was ahead at this point, just in terms of the polling, not in terms of raw data yet, but she's not. I mean, everything has been completely neck and neck. So she is not in the situation he was in.
No, not at all. First of all, a little whiteboard.
I mean, are you competing with Hemmer? I mean, this is your deal?
He's high tech, I'm low tech. Just remember, it is a tight contest, but it could yield, if it breaks the right way, a big electoral college victory for one side or the other. Because if they sweep 5 or 6 of the battleground states, it's going to give them a big chunk and make it easier for them to govern. Second thing is, we're going to watch tonight 3 different battles. There's going to be a battle over the issues like Kellyanne talked about, like the economy and the border. But we're also going to see a battle over characteristics, because if it was a battle about the issues only, this race would necessarily be over. And we're also talking about change. How people interpret what change is going to have a big impact on this tonight. And then finally, we're going to have the impact of third parties. Watch it tonight. This could be 2016 all over again, where a third-party candidate, Jill Stein, got more votes in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania than Hillary Clinton lost by, or 2020, where Joe Jorgensen, the Libertarian candidate, got more votes in Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina. And in testimony to the founder of and the godfather of the whiteboard, our man, Tim Russert, it's going to be Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania tonight.
2 boards. He's got lots of Sharpies. It's going to be a long night. To your point, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is on the ballot in Michigan and Wisconsin. And if that comes down to the wire, we may be talking about that later on.
Yeah, I mean, what a ride that has been. He tried to get on the ballot, then tried to get off the ballot. Then he supported President Trump, and he could potentially be a spoiler in Michigan and Wisconsin. We don't know that yet, but we're going to wait and see. We're going to be watching that for sure. So we are waiting for our first round of poll closings. That includes key battleground states. Harold just mentioned Georgia is one of the first ones we're going to be watching. We have reporters literally everywhere as our special coverage continues.
Well, Americans are voting all across the country. Our first results about to come in at the top of the hour. In some polling places, they are experiencing some hiccups. Senior correspondent Eric Shawn has more on that from our New York City newsroom. Good evening, Eric.
Good evening, Brett. Well, you know, it is the day that America votes, and officials say that the process, well, now it's largely going smoothly, but they say there are some sporadic incidents. In Michigan, 2 people were arrested for making election threats, one against former President Trump and Christian conservatives, another one charged with targeting a Democratic organization. The FBI also says false bomb threats in Georgia originated with a Russian email address. The Bureau also warning about fake videos on social media, one telling voters to cast ballots remotely because of a supposed high terrorist threat, another claim that there's voter fraud at prisons. All not true, says the Bureau tonight. And former President Trump on Truth Social claims there is, quote, a lot of talk about massive cheating in Philadelphia. Law enforcement coming. But Philadelphia District Attorney Larry Krasner responds to that, saying, quote, the only talk about massive cheating has come from one of the candidates, Donald J. Trump. There is no factual basis whatsoever within law enforcement to support this wild allegation. If Donald J. Trump has any facts to support his wild allegations, we want them now. Right now. We are not holding our breath. And the Republican city commissioner there also says that claim by the former president is not true. He calls it disinformation. And disinformation does continue to pop up on social media. One Pennsylvania viewer alerted us to a Facebook post that appeared to show a ballot that already had a small mark in the box for Harris. The viewer feared his Trump vote would not be counted. We traced that alleged ballot to Kentucky, where the Secretary of State's office told us that the ballot is an apparent fake. So the lesson from all this, they say, be careful of what you read on social media. Brett?
Okay, Eric, thank you.
So meanwhile, the election has already ignited a flurry of legal challenges. Let's bring in Shannon Bream and Carrie Irvin, 2 of the best, to tell us how they are seeing all of this. What really stands out at this point? We've heard a lot of these sort of smaller matters, but what should we be paying attention to?
Well, the Supreme Court, the last thing they want to do is get pulled into this. The justices are going about their normal business. They heard cases this morning that have nothing to do with the election, but they are ready at any time for emergency calls that come into them. They operate 24/7 around the clock. And so while they hope this doesn't come to their door, they've had to deal with a couple things out of Pennsylvania and Virginia, and they're ready if that happens this time around.
Yeah, Carrie, some of it is about ballots that come in later, whether they'll stay open. These are all judicial decisions eventually.
I would say the focus of the DNC has been on access to mail-in ballots and the amount of mail-in ballots that are available. The RNC is focused, to your point, on the rules governing those mail-in ballots and to make sure the administration of such is going smoothly. I will say, though, there is a marked difference this time around than there was in 2020. I think the RNC and other groups have brought a lot of serious cases, serious challenges, because I think the country has gotten wiser to the fact that the administration of elections leading up to the election is very important.
And we should point out, these states, the secretaries of state, they've done a really good job overall. I mean, we haven't seen a ton of incidents, to Eric's point earlier.
Yeah, they had 4 years to figure out what didn't go right in 2020 and all the litigation and the messes that came from that. And there's still litigation related to people who were involved with some of those claims in 2020. So what they wanted to do in many states we've seen, they streamlined it. They streamlined the court process. Carrie and I have been going through these all day today. Many of them have been filed in Pennsylvania, but quickly, responsibly, they've been done well, they've been serious, and we've seen judges act on them quickly today, which helps everyone.
Thank you all.
We hope that continues.
We may be back.
Thank you very much,
The first
you guys.
polls are about to close in a half-dozen states. Those results, early results, just minutes away as our special coverage continues on Fox.
See the countdown clock there. We're closing in on 7 p.m. Eastern, and that is when we will get our first poll closings in half a dozen states. We'll have to wait another hour to get the first glimpse of the blue wall, the trio of states that could hold the key to 270. Pennsylvania, obviously, is among them. They will be the first to close at 8 p.m. Eastern, and Team Fox coverage is in Wisconsin. Grady Trimble is in Michigan. But first, let's go to Alexandria Hoff, who we find in Morrisville, Pennsylvania. Hi, Alexandria.
Hi, good to be with you. We're here in Bucks County, and that is really the premier county to watch here in Pennsylvania. It is densely populated, 650,000 people. President Biden won it by 4 points in 2020. But now this year, for the first time in 15 years, registered Republicans outnumber Democrats. Now, looking statewide, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, former President Trump, he won the state narrowly in 2016, then lost it narrowly in 2020. So for Vice President Harris, her success here in the state potentially will depend on the collar counties, the suburbs of Philadelphia, Montgomery, Chester, Delaware counties, and here in Bucks County that pushed President Biden over the edge in 2020. So it's make or break. Now, polls close at 8 p.m., but that is not necessarily the case everywhere. In Luzerne County, there's one polling location in Laughlin that's getting extended till 9:30 p.m. after some issues this morning. Some issues this morning are also why Cambria County, that is extended to 10 p.m. tonight. Those ballots cast by after 8 p.m. will be provisional. Again, 2020, the count here was slow. It took 4 days, but there were 2.6 million mail-in ballots to count in 2020. So far, 1.9 million have been accepted here this year. Guys, we'll send it back to you.
Alexandra, thanks.
Grady Trimble is in Michigan, just outside Detroit. Good evening, Grady.
Good evening, Brett. Michigan's top elections official says turnout here on Election Day has been off the charts. Some of the top issues driving voters to the polls in Michigan include the big ones like the economy, the border, and abortion. But there are also two niche issues more specific to Michigan. Those are the electric vehicle mandate and the Middle East. The Trump campaign has been trying to win over auto workers who disagree with their union's endorsement of Vice President Harris. The campaign has also been courting Arab Americans, many of them unhappy with the Biden-Harris administration's handling of the wars in Gaza and Lebanon. Former President Trump became the first major party candidate to visit Dearborn, Michigan last week. That city is home to the largest Arab American population in the country. And we talked to voters, Arab American voters, who say that resonated with them. So as we look for results to come in tonight here in the Wolverine state, those two issues could be critical, not only in the race for the White House, but also as Republicans try to flip the Senate seat vacated by Senator Debbie Stabenow. Brett.
All right, Grady, thank you.
Mike Tobin is in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, with a look there. Hi, Mike.
And there has been a problem, Martha, with the vote here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. According to Jeff Fleming, a city spokesman, and the Milwaukee Elections Commission, there were some 13 tabulation machines at Central Count, and a Republican observer noticed that the machines had been sealed but not properly locked, some of the machines. So the city officials said they didn't doubt that the integrity of the vote, but out of an abundance of caution, have decided to rerun some 31,000 ballots, and that 31,000 out of 106,000 ballots. We did anticipate that we would get final numbers out of Milwaukee around 1 to 2 a.m. It looks like that will be delayed. And the ballots we're talking about are the mail-in ballots, the Dropbox ballots, and the in-person early votes. And we expect that we will get the numbers now just a little bit later than 2 a.m. The city couldn't really speculate about how much later it would be. And we did get a statement out of the Republican National Committee out of this, and it says that this is unacceptable example of incompetent election administration in a key swing state. And that statement is coming from Michael Whatley and Laura Trump, the co-chairs of the RNC. Guys?
Mike, thank you.
We're also keeping a close eye on New Hampshire tonight. It is the site of a tightly contested governor's race between Democrat Joyce Craig and Republican Kelly Ayotte. Molly Lyon, is tracking that for us tonight. Hi, Molly.
Good evening. The Granite State's uber-tight governor's race is the best shot the Democrats have to retake a governor's seat after the current Republican governor there decided not to seek a fifth term. Former Republican Senator Kelly Ayotte faces off against the former mayor of Manchester, the city's largest city, Democrat Joyce Craig. Abortion has been at the forefront of this race between two women, Craig attacking Ayotte's record as a senator, voting for a national ban after 20 weeks. In response, Ayotte has vowed to adhere to state law, which limits abortions after 24 weeks. The most expensive governor's race in state history has afforded plenty of negative ads, including Ayotte's targeting Craig's mayoral leadership, highlighting homelessness and crime in Manchester. Craig pushing back, saying opioid overdoses and violent crime are down, slamming Ayotte's approach in a recent debate.
I think it's really sad that someone for governor is actually attacking community, attacking Manchester. As governor, we should be lifting up every community in our state.
Ayotte logged perhaps the most scathing of insults at Craig, arguing that her approach to governing would model that of neighboring Deep Blue Massachusetts.
Mark my words, if Joyce Craig gets to the corner office,
we can kiss our New Hampshire advantage goodbye.
And when it comes to casting and counting the votes, New Hampshire is old school. Voters fill out paper ballots. The majority of communities do use counting machines, but 122 towns still hand count their ballots. Back to you.
All right, Molly, thank you.
So the clock is ticking down to our first poll closings. They include Indiana, Virginia, and one of the big ones, Georgia. All part of our special coverage, Fox News Democracy 24. Counting down to the first major poll closings, and it is not just the race for the White House. We've got House races, Senate races hanging in the balance tonight. Senior congressional correspondent Chad Pergram live on Capitol Hill to set us up for that. Hi, Chad.
Martha, good evening. Nearly every source has described control of the House the same way to me, tight as a tick. Democrats need a net gain of 4 seats to win the House and award the Speaker's gavel to Hakeem Jeffries. Now, here are the bat signals which could indicate the direction of the House. 2 seats are in play in Virginia. If freshman Republican Jen Kiggans loses in Virginia 2, or if it's tight, that's a good sign for the Democrats. Another bellwether is Virginia 7. Democrat Eugene Vindman faces Republican Derek Anderson. That could tell us a lot about House control. Now, another canary in the coal mine, North Carolina 1. If GOP challenger Laurie Buckhout defeats Democrat Don Davis, that's a good sign for Republicans. Now, control of the Senate. The GOP needs a net gain of 2 seats. The first big indicator may come in Ohio. Polls close at 7:30 Eastern Time. Democrat Sherrod Brown faces challenger Bernie Moreno. Moreno appears to be running behind former President Trump in the Buckeye State. Now, Fox is told that Mr. Trump must carry Ohio by about 10 points in order for Moreno to win, and Brown has only won in Democratic years, 2006, 2012, and 2018. The wild card is this year. Martha?
Chad, thanks.
One of the races that could swing control of the U.S. Senate playing out in Montana. Correspondent Dan Springer is in Bozeman tonight. Good evening, Dan.
Yeah, good evening, Brett. And I don't want to go on the record as saying I'm jealous of all my colleagues and their nice, warm watch parties already. We're in Bozeman. It was snowing sideways. I don't think it's going to have a lot of impact on voter turnout today because most people in Montana voted prior to today. The polls close at 8 o'clock, and that's when we can go inside to the GOP watch party in the hotel behind me. It's expected to be a good night for Republicans here. President Trump is expected to win by a landslide. The big question, of course, is what happens in the Tim Sheehy John Tester race. John Tester has been said to be the most vulnerable Democratic senator in the country this year. As he has in past years, he always seems to manage to slip away and win his elections. And he could do it again this time, but Republicans are confident that Tim Sheehy, a newcomer to politics, will end up winning this seat and taking the Senate for the Republicans. Brett?
Dan Springer in Montana. Dan, thanks.
Joining us now here on set, former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Speaker, good to have you with us. I know you obviously are watching these House races very closely. You know them probably better than anyone. Tell us what we should be watching for and whether or not you think there's an opening here for your party to take over the House or to build on the House.
Can we hold it and can we extend it? A lot happens to do with the presidential race. A lot of our candidates are underperforming Trump. The next 2 states you're going to watch is Ohio and North Carolina. And that'll be a big play, not only just for the House, for the Senate. Moreno has been closing stronger. We have 2 congressional seats there that could be a pickup. And if we pick up 4 to 5 seats from Democrats, we will keep the House. And you look at North Carolina 1, book out, it will tell you 2 different things. If we win that seat, the Republicans are going to have a big night. But it also tells you the percentage of the black vote, which could give a problem to the Democrats. If it stays where it is right now at 36%, that could be good for President Trump and also good for Republicans.
So as you look at the map, there are these canaries in the coal mine in different races. But how much does the presidential race and the coattails there affect those races?
I think it affects whether the House is able to keep Republican is going to be a lot on President Trump. If we keep the House, Trump has brought us over because before a lot of our candidates overperformed Trump, they're all underperforming. I was just talking to one member in California that Trump had lost his district by 13. Trump was tied today in his district. Trump has been performing
in California
better than he has before. Because you really got to look to California and New York is where we won our majorities. That's where a lot of money is being spent. We've always picked up seats in those states the last 2 cycles. We've got to pick up some more and hold them.
So when you look at the presidential race, in light of all that, because so much will depend on it, it has been toss up all across the board for, these polls have been tied for weeks. What's your take?
My take is what I'm looking at early is suburban areas. I don't want to see a bleed from President Trump's vote in the suburban areas where he had
You mean from 2020?
From 2020 to 2024. And the rural areas, I want those to turn out bigger. Now, Republicans have really improved with President Trump on early vote. Instead of being down 1 million votes in Pennsylvania, we're only down 400,000. You look at North Carolina, Arizona, we're actually ahead. That's like going into a football game in the fourth quarter and you're leading. Can you keep the lead? That's where we're at right now.
You know, it's exciting. America is voting in great numbers. You've been a candidate so many times. On these nights, what is the candidate? Is it nerve-wracking? Is it exciting? What is the deal?
You know what? These hours right here are the most nerve-wracking because everybody's calling you to ask what's going on. You have no idea. And you want to know what's happening. And you've put all this effort for probably 1.5 years. All your effort can be your family, and all you want are the returns. And you come to a state like California, you still got to wait a month.
That's right. We hope not. We hope not. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much.
Great to see you.
Now let's take a look at another battleground, Arizona. The Sun Belt state is also home to a high-stakes Senate race out there. Senior correspondent Alicia Acuna is live in Scottsdale. Alicia.
Hi, Brett. We are in the peak hours of voting here in Maricopa County. Polls close in little more than 2 hours, and we want to give you a vantage point from our Fox News drone team. And Brett, you mentioned that Senate race here. Actually, earlier today, GOP Senate candidate Kari Lake stopped by this location to thank voters and encourage them to stay in line. She is in a pitched battle to fill that seat being vacated by independent Senator Kyrsten Sinema against Democratic Congressman Ruben Gallego. Gallego has managed to outpace Lake in both money and also the polls. However, Lake tells me she feels like she has the momentum. And that's in part because the GOP here has managed to sign up so many people in terms of voter registration since 2020. They have far outpaced the Democrats. Both Harris and Trump have been targeting independents and Latinos right while they've been here. And Harris is hoping women really help pull her across the line. Now, let's talk about the Maricopa County ballot. It's the longest it's been since 2006. 2 pages, double-sided. And Brett, right now it is slowing down the lines, and it's expected to slow down the count. Brett.
Alicia, thank you. First poll closings coming up right around the corner. That includes our first glimpse at the battleground state of Georgia. Laura Ingraham, Jesse Waters, Sean Hannity as our election night coverage continues right here on Fox. Welcome back. The first polls are about to close in a half-dozen states. The White House is awaiting those early returns as well. This in a race that was obviously turned upside down just a few months ago. It's hard to believe, back to that debate June 27th, when President Biden ended his bid for re-election soon after that. Senior White House correspondent Peter Doocy has more live from the North Lawn. Good evening, Peter.
Good evening, Brett and Martha. The biggest Democratic party of the decade is here in Washington, D.C. tonight, and President Biden will not be there at Howard headquarters, and rather at Howard for Harris headquarters. And if you're keeping score at home, President Biden is the one who got Harris elected the first time and raised millions of dollars for the re-election effort. And tonight, White House officials are telling us he's going to be watching the returns on TV in the residence with longtime aides. He'll be getting regular updates. We did see them wheeling some big screens into the first floor a little while ago. Harris for president would still be Biden for president if he did not decide late summer that he thought it was time for new voices, fresh voices, yes, younger voices, and for that, he is going to have a quiet night in this house that she has spent $1 billion to try to move into. Brett?
What a sequence of events this has been, Peter, between that really disastrous debate and then the dropping out in the middle of July for this president. Give me a sense of what the security is like around there.
There are a lot more local police, but it's not like something where they have called in the National Guard. And there is extra fencing up tonight, but there has been for the last couple weeks, also worth pointing out, they've been building the inaugural viewing stand right outside. That is why the fencing has been up. And that is something else that during the commercials, President Biden can look out and see for the next president. Back to you.
That is something. Peter Ducey live on the North Lawn. Peter, thanks. You know, Britt, we should just take a moment and think about all that has transpired from that debate, from 2 assassination attempts on one of the candidates, the former president, from a new candidate campaigning in about 100 days, and here we are essentially tied.
And it gives us an idea of the acceleration of the news cycle, that all of that, which was really so very recent and so extraordinary, has sort of passed and disappeared. I mean, Biden seems like Biden's been gone forever. She's been the candidate forever. The assassination attempts, which we thought would leave such a big mark on President Trump's standing, former President Trump's standing, it's vanished from sight. It's not even talked about.
But why is that?
Well, I think part of it's, as I say, the acceleration of the news cycle, that we move on very quickly from one thing, no matter how major, to another. And the only things that kind of stay in the news are things like the wars in Ukraine and in the Middle East. But even today, we had a major development in the Middle East with the firing of the Israeli defense minister, and that'll pass without notice tonight, almost completely.
Barely gets
remarkable.
It is stunning, and when Biden dropped out, it knocked the assassination attempts off the top of the news list. But
we are going to speak with our panel because we're getting raw vote total in, right?
We are seconds away from 9 states, including Ohio, Virginia, Kentucky, Indiana, plus critical battlegrounds.
We're going to do a great job for North Carolina.
Georgia, this election right here is a fight for the future.
With 97 electoral votes on the line, we have the results as they come in. The moment is here. America is watching.
And it is 7 o'clock on the East Coast, and polls have just closed in half a dozen states. The Fox News Decision Desk is making its first calls. The most closely watched state at this hour is Georgia, one of 7 battleground states that could decide the presidency. That one obviously is too early to call.
And we'll dig into those numbers soon. It's also too early to call Virginia, though Vice President Harris has a lead in our Fox News voter analysis, waiting for the raw vote total to dump there. Fox News can project that former President Trump will win the state of Indiana.
Trump will also carry nearby Kentucky for a 3rd time, and it is too early to call the state of South Carolina. But former President Trump has the lead there, according to our Fox News voter analysis.
Meanwhile, Vice President Harris will sail to victory in liberal Vermont. And as we look at the race for 270 electoral votes, that's what it takes to win. Throughout the night, we will be adding up as each state is called. Right now, you see 19 electoral votes for the former president, 3 for the vice president. And we are going to be following all of this throughout the night. And also on the bottom of the screen, you can see these races as we get the raw vote total in.
Yeah, and that's going to start happening very soon. But let's turn to the Senate for a moment, because this is another big story. Control of the United States Senate. Democrats have almost no room for error. The Fox News Decision Desk can project that Indiana Republican Congressman Jim Banks will win his first Senate race.
In Virginia, it is too early to call the race between incumbent Democratic Senator Tim Kaine and his Republican challenger, Hung Cao. We're going to be looking into Virginia.
Longtime independent Senator Bernie Sanders will win a 4th term in the Senate in Vermont, and he caucuses, of course, with the Democrats.
As we look at the balance of power in the U.S. Senate, you can see we'll be ticking up. You need 51 for the majority. The Republicans need to pick up 2 to take the majority, and they're looking at states like West Virginia and Montana, but there could be others on this board. Right now, as you see, 39 Republicans to 29 Democrats.
A lot of toss-ups in that group as well. In the Senate races across the country, let's go to Bill Hemmer and get an update from the board.
Hey, guys, we're just seeing a little of this vote come in from Florida, so why don't we go ahead and start there? And I'm just going to punch around and see a little bit of what we're getting here. We know the turnout was big. We know Republicans, based on some of the early voting and the voting today, was pretty decent here. But 8% of the statewide vote. This is Duval County, Jacksonville. I haven't seen this yet. Just go ahead and so you got about 2/3 of the vote coming in Florida right now. Florida counts fast, by the way. The early votes, they rack it up. And so right here in Duval County, you got Kamala Harris leading by a point. I tell you what we do. Why don't we do this? It's very interesting because for one of the first times in a long time, in anybody's memory, I guess, going back to FDR, the late 1800s, we've got a candidate on the ballot where you can compare the number from 4 years ago and compare the number from 8 years ago. So we're going to do this a lot throughout the night. We'll get a measure about how Trump is performing versus Hillary Clinton and versus Joe Biden. So let's go back 8 years now. Just watch his number here with 2/3 of the vote reporting in Florida. This is one county in Jacksonville. So all right, here we go. Trump was just shy of 50 against Hillary Clinton in that county. And then 4 years ago, he was a little less than that, about 2.5 shy of the midway mark in overall Duval. So he's doing right about the same number he did with Joe Biden 4 years ago. So let's look at Volusia County. Okay, you got a little more of the vote in here. Trump easily at nearly 60% of the vote. 77% reporting. Flagler, 86% reporting as well. So we expect him to do quite well in Florida. Let me move away from this because what I wanted to show you in a moment here is we're just getting a flavor right now of perhaps what the suburban vote is doing for Trump versus Harris, and then what the rural vote's doing. And what I did was I want to pick out two places here because there's a county just north of Indianapolis. This is Hamilton County. Population about 350, 360,000. About 2/3 of the vote coming in right now. What I want to show you here is Trump's at 48.8 now. There's more vote out there. Indiana counts the mail-in ballots first. So let's do the same exercise, okay? This time, watch the slide come out here. And now it gives us a direct comparison for 8 years ago against Hillary Clinton. This is the weakness in the Trump campaign, right? 8 years ago, he was just shy of 57% in the same county. And then 4 years ago, got slightly weaker, okay? Down about 2 points. And then current day today, okay, so there's more vote out there, so we'll see how it goes. But right now, a little weaker there in that suburb just north of Indianapolis. Conversely, right, Trump's been working the rurals, right? Well, this is Kentucky. You got a lot of the votes still out there, even though we called the race, okay? This is Taylor County. It is rural. It is small. There's about 10 to 12,000 raw votes there. Trump's percentage of the vote is big at 77%. So let's do the same exercise again. Go back to 2016, the percentage of the vote, okay, it was lower. 4 years ago in 2020, same county now, right around 75%. And as of tonight, okay, by the way, raw vote, 93.76, hold on to that number, okay? It's important because he's doing better on a percentage basis, but the raw vote doesn't help him a ton. That may suggest, as we pop around the map throughout the night, that the turnout for this vote could be lower than 2020. That's a COVID year, a pandemic year, a lot of people voting by mail, et cetera, and we'll see whether or not we're able to top that number from 2020, but it's questionable and debatable at the moment. If I've got time, I'll just show you Florida. Just one more time here, 30% in. Miami is missing. You know, we're waiting for the Hispanic vote down there in Miami, the Cuban vote as well. Broward County, 70% in. Heavily Democratic there, but about 60% of the vote right now going for Kamala Harris. The Trump team is saying that they're getting on the radio right now. They're cautiously optimistic. They're doing radio in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, all the way at the top. That means the former president telling people there's still time and finish strong. That's the message from Mar-a-Lago, right around down here in Palm Beach. Back to you, Brett and Martha.
You have time, Bill. We're going to have a lot of time.
Roger that.
Okay, yeah.
We have a lot of waiting to do
You
still.
know, Georgia is really crucial
Yes.
as we look at this raw vote total. And they're also getting a lot that we expect to come in very fast. Madison Allworth is actually in Norcross, Georgia, with the view from the ground. Hey, Madison.
Hey, Brett. Hey, Martha. So, yeah, polls have closed at a majority of locations here in Georgia, including the location that I'm at. I can actually see from my vantage point that at least one person has tried to come in past 7 p.m. and they are turning them away because this poll location, like most, closed at 7. But there are a few, because of issues, that will be open past 7 p.m. So 5 locations in Fulton County, 1 here in Gwinnett County. Those 6 had issues with unsubstantiated threats. So they were closed for a certain amount of time during the day. They've been allowed to be open for that amount of time past 7. We also have 7 precincts in DeKalb. That's another area in the Atlanta metro area that had bomb threats. We're still waiting to see if those locations are going to be allowed to be extended past that 7 p.m. window. So majority results have coming in. We've talked to the Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, a number of times. He has reiterated he's really confident that majority results will be reported by 8 p.m. And now when it comes to how close it is here, recounts are not necessary. But if it's within 0.5%, a candidate can request it. We're going to start to get those results really any minute now. Guys, I'll send it back to you.
Okay, Madison, thank you.
All right, let's go to Sandra Smith, who is looking at these Fox News voter analysis surveys and picking up some information about different voter groups out there. What are you learning, Sandra?
Which could be telling a big story right now. And this is the first time you'll see this, and the first time since the polls have now closed, begun to close there, that we can break this down by candidate. Okay, first up, timing of your vote. We know so many went out for early voting. Let's see how those votes are breaking down in Georgia. Those who cast their vote early, look at this. They did not prefer a candidate if they early voted. It is split 49 for Harris, 49 for Trump. All right, let's look at some of these other key data points. We know race was huge. The black vote was huge for Biden when he won by just a bit in Georgia there in 2020. So let's look at how they are turning out in this election. All right, this is the first time we can break this down among black voters and their support for Kamala Harris. While strong, she is below where Biden was in 2020, 4 years ago. This number for Biden was more like 91. So she's running about 8 points behind where Biden was with the black vote in Georgia in 2020. All right, I have another data point where I'm going to combine this with gender, okay? So now you look at the black male voter in Georgia. We know both candidates have spent a lot of time courting them there. Democrats have been trying to convince them that they could be better for the economy. Trump has been trying to woo those voters. Remember, inflation's more than 20% in that state. With black men, Harris is at 73%, Trump at 25%. Let me give you perspective and context on that. Joe Biden in 2020 had this number at about 87%, okay? So right now, she's running about 13 points with black men behind where Joe Biden was in 2020. All right, another data point there, Brett, because I know you asked. Black women as well in Georgia. We have been watching this. Here it is. Strong showing, 89%, but let me give you the perspective on that. Joe Biden, with black women in Georgia 4 years ago, was at 95% of their support. She is also running behind with them by about 6 points. I'll leave you off with one other data point here. Again, this is the first time we are able to show you this. Education and race. Whites with no college degree in Georgia. Donald Trump, a strong showing there. He's at 77, getting 77% of their support. So we have a lot more data coming in, and we will continue to bring that to you. Brett, Martha?
Those are really
Sandra,
interesting
thank
numbers.
you.
They
Absolutely.
tell a story. They start to.
Yeah, so let's bring in our panel and see what they think about these numbers. Britt Hume, Dana Perino, Harold Ford Jr., Karl Rove, Laura Ingraham, and Robert Wolf. Laura, welcome. Great to have you here. She's underperforming Biden is the headline there.
Yeah, it looks like right now, Harris isn't getting enough from women, at least in Georgia, that she would need to overcome what Trump is getting from men, both increase in support from black men and men overall. This is going to be the question throughout the night, because the Trump people and all their surrogate groups have tried to really mobilize men. We talked about this afternoon, Martha. I mean, from Joe Rogan to Elon Musk and all the other people down the line, they are trying to turn out that male vote. I would keep an eye on Virginia, and Karl knows this better than everyone else, but in 2020 in Virginia, Trump lost by 9.2, and in 2016, he lost by 4.9. Watch what happens in Virginia. Youngkin has been phenomenal on the ground for Trump. And even if that lead is cut by half, let's say it's 4 points, that could be a bellwether of something to come. Also in New Hampshire, where I spent 4 long winters.
Yes.
See what happens in New Hampshire. That was very tight in 2016. And
Robert, welcome to you as well. The state of Georgia, Biden flipped Georgia for the first time since 1992, largely because of the black electorate. Looking at those numbers right now, it doesn't seem like she's delivering that same kind of power.
Yeah, those numbers seem soft, although I would tell you I was predicting North Carolina over Georgia for the vice president because I think Stein will be like plus 15 versus Robinson. And I think the governors, and I think that may help the vice president. But these are soft numbers, and I thought with Warnock and Ossoff, 2 senators that are popular, we would have maybe seen, a better turnout. So I'm hoping this is just the early voting.
Yeah, not all the data obviously is in yet. Carl, what's your read on it?
Well, first of all, we're looking at half of the problem. The problem is that we're looking at is what's the division of the black vote by men and women, Trump versus Harris. The other thing we need to look at is turnout. A 1% decline in black turnout in Georgia over the last election would wipe out the 10,000 vote margin that Joe Biden had. So we're seeing part of the picture. Let's see if it's compensated or offset a little bit by how much the black turnout is. Is it bigger than last time or smaller than last time? I'd make one other point. The other part of the Georgia equation that we're going to have to watch, we have a little bit of evidence from, and I mean a little bit of evidence from Indiana that we ought to be worried about, if the Trump campaign ought to be worried about, and that is the suburban support. Hamilton County went Republican 4 years ago. Trump won up 52 to 45. Tonight, with about 2/3 of the vote in, he's losing it to Kamala Harris, 50 to 44, or excuse me, 50 to 48. So he's running behind his performance. If that happens in
Indiana,
in Georgia, with these suburban counties like Forsyth and Cherokee, Gwinnett, which was won by Biden, but it has a huge biggest number of Republican voters in the state are in Gwinnett. You remember, Hamilton County, 34% of the Republican primary voters in May voted for Nikki Haley when she had no chance of winning. We're seeing that effect tonight with the county being blue, at least at this point.
Harold, it's just worth pointing out that the Fox News voter analysis is this rolling poll over several days, 120,000 voters asked a series of questions. When we look at that data that Sandra talked about, with the raw vote total coming in, we have a sense of how accurate or not accurate it is. So far, it's lining up. Your thoughts where you are?
So I think Carl's point is right. I think one of the things I would love to see in Georgia is not just racial breakdown, but just breakdown of women versus men. Because if indeed he's underperforming the suburban areas in Indiana, you could extrapolate perhaps that happens in Georgia. But I would agree, if these numbers hold up, if he's polling, he being President Trump, 25% amongst black men, that's a challenge. If you see that in the other big cities in the blue states, Detroit and Philadelphia, that could be an issue as you think about the tightness of this race. But this campaign, the Harris campaign, has always said that it's women. They're going to be the key here. I agree with Robert. I think the North Carolina piece, the Stein-Robinson race, that gubernatorial race, will have an advantage for Harris. But this is early. She's still ahead in Georgia. And I think once we get some more of these numbers in, once you get to 10, 15, 20%, I think we'll have a little bit better sense of whether or not this 25% African-American male thing is as serious as it seems.
And when we have on the screen, you have the numbers, and then you look at the percent of precincts in. Right now, it's at 3%. So as you look at the screen, that's what you'll be seeing throughout the night.
I mean, one of the things that the Harris campaign, which Harold just touched on, Dana, is that they're hoping that they're going to make it up with some moderate GOP voters that will be persuaded over to the Harris camp. What's the feel for that at this stage of the game?
I would be skeptical that there is a lot of that kind of vote out there. So Governor Kemp had some problems with President Trump for a while, but they patched those things up. And I believe that as Youngkin has been very good for President Trump in Virginia, that Kemp has an amazing operation there in Georgia, and he has been tireless out there for him. And I also think that we should thank Georgia for doing what it needed to do in order to help get us these results in as quickly as possible, to have integrity in the vote, for people to have confidence that the system worked for them, that they could get through those lines quickly, and that the rules are the rules. And that, I think, will help people feel confident about the results.
Britt, the economy is the #1 issue in Georgia by far.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere, but pretty much leads the way. In our Fox News voter analysis, they break Trump's way significantly on the issue of the economy.
Right, that's important. And the other thing we have to keep an eye on throughout the night, it seems to me, are what, to use a piece of newly minted jargon we have, is just the low propensity voters.
You hate that word.
I think it's awful jargon, but can't think of a quickly better way to say it. But
people who don't vote very
Trump campaign has
often
really set a great deal of store by the fact that they believe that they have reached these people and will turn them out in significant numbers.
But explain who they are. There are people who didn't vote in 2020, or maybe even didn't vote in 2016 and 2020.
Never voted. And they're the kind of people they think are largely for Trump, if you asked them, right? And that if they can turn them out, they think they could be the decisive factor in this election. We don't know enough now, I don't think, to assess how that's going, but that's something to keep an eye on.
We might have an indication of it if you look at some of these Georgia rural counties. I've been watching Bill work on his wall. And if you take a look at some of these rural counties, small counties, there are 150 or 180, 159 counties in Georgia. You'll see that Trump is getting a bigger number of votes in these smaller counties and a bigger percentage. This is, again, goes back to the episodic or low propensity voter.
All right, we're going to dig into these numbers, and we'll head back to Bill momentarily. Election night just getting started.
Some of the first polls are about to close in hotly contested state of North Carolina. So we're going to have some data there to show you coming up right after this break as our special coverage continues. Watching all the branches tonight, so control of the Senate could be decided as well in the state, potentially, of Ohio. Democrat incumbent Sherrod Brown fighting to hold on to his long-held seat against GOP newcomer Bernie Moreno in one of the year's closely watched races and a very expensive race. Let's check in with Nate Foy, who is live in Strongsville, Ohio, where the polls are about to close. Hey, Nate.
Hey, guys. So, yeah, more than $400 million in ad spending in this Senate race, and a few people still coming in here to vote just minutes before the polls close at 7:30. And voter turnout has been strong. More than 2.5 million Ohioans voted early. This morning at 5 a.m., there was a line stretching around this entire building with people ready to vote, and it really reflects what's at stake. 17 electoral votes. Former President Donald Trump is expected to carry the state for a third time. But as you mentioned, the race that everybody is watching is between the incumbent Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown and GOP challenger Bernie Moreno. Now, Senator Brown has campaigned seeking a fourth term, trying to make this about reproductive rights, which are enshrined in Ohio's Constitution. And for that reason, Moreno told us last night it should be a non-issue in this race. And he says that Senator Brown is turning abortion into a political weapon.
There is no ability federally to be able to handle abortion at the federal level one way or the other. So what I'm going to focus on as a United States Senator is to bring people together on this issue.
And we will see the impact that former President Donald Trump has down the ballot. Keep in mind, no Democratic senator has won an election in a state that Trump carried while Trump was on the ballot. We'll see if that changes tonight. We'll send it back to you.
Nate Foy with the golf voice inside the polling area. That was nice.
He said there weren't that many people left. Maybe he felt like he had to be quiet.
Yeah, I think so. Battleground North Carolina, also among the next batch of poll closings, a tight presidential race in a state Trump won twice. Many voters there still recovering, obviously, from Hurricane Helene. Senior correspondent Jonathan Seri is live in Raleigh. Hi, Jonathan.
Yeah, good evening, Brett and Martha. Most of the polls throughout the state are going to close just minutes from now, with the exception of 2 precincts that had technical problems that delayed voting this morning. The issue in Wilson County involved a printer cable, and in Burke County, it was a laptop that wouldn't boot up. In both instances, it involved equipment used for checking in voters, not the actual voting machines. Other than that, elections officials say things have been moving pretty smoothly, including in the western part of the state, which was heavily damaged in Hurricane Helene. 7 tents with electric generators and voting machines are in place to accommodate Election Day voting in areas where normal voting sites were destroyed or inaccessible. Election officials say the state's voter turnout would already early voting records is on track to meet or exceed the record set in 2020 for total ballots cast. Back to you guys.
All right, Jonathan, thank you.
So let's take it around our panel. We just heard a little bit about the abortion issue, Laura. And it's interesting just looking at our Fox News voter analysis, because we saw in 2022 in the midterms, this was obviously it was more of an impact than people thought it was going to have going in. But in this situation, it appears that only a quarter of the voters who are Democrats say that it is the single most important factor in their decision. So that's going to be a big question tonight. Mm-hmm. Does abortion turn out to be as big an issue as perhaps Democrats would like it to be.
I thought the Fox voter analysis on gas prices and food prices was staggering. It was 85%, 91%. I'm very concerned about both. But certain voter analysis and some of the other networks, Edison, Reuters, has abortion at 14, democracy at 35, the economy at 31, immigration down at 11. I'm not sure I buy that, but look, it's a stark choice presented to America tonight. Do you want the status quo, which is pretty much high prices, high cost of living, fairly liberal to open border situation, or do you want a change? We know what that change was like in 2019. I don't think we've had as stark a choice, perhaps since 1980, as we do tonight for the country. But they've done a brilliant job of making this not about her old record, not about Biden, who has a 38% approval rating tonight, but about abortion and young women and Donald Trump, fascist, Nazi. That's their close. So if it's abortion, fascism, Hitler, that's your close. I think that's a pretty dark view of the country. I think the economy is still the #1 issue nationwide. I'm not buying some of these exit polls.
Harold, of economic issues, this election overall, every race, it's estimated to have $15.9 billion with a B dollars spent on this election. Almost $16 billion. That surpasses the record of $15.1 billion in 2020. If you were to take a checkbook and write a check to every American everywhere, it's almost $50 a person, and we are tied tonight in the presidential race.
I gather some Americans would love the $50 check as opposed to having them gone through what we've gone through here over the last.
But the vice president's campaign has spent more than former President Trump. And do you think, right now, looking at the numbers, that they're getting the money worth?
It's early. We'll find out. One of the reasons we spend so much in campaigns today is that the campaign process is a business. They start 4 years out. They begin raising money and hiring pollsters and all those kinds of things. Hopefully, we get some reform to that going forward. But I have to tell you, just looking at the early numbers, you got to be a little concerned if you're Democrats on this. Now, the numbers, it's way, way early, so we're going to get a lot more things here. But to see those numbers that Bill put up in Florida and Miami-Dade with the breakdown between the two candidates, that's a little concerning. The concern that you raise, Carl, about suburban voters in Indiana, Democrats have to be a little concerned about this as we head in here. I'm curious to know also about that Florida abortion thing that was on the ballot there in Florida and how that's faring and if that's had really the impact. The Kemp relationship with Trump, it seems like it might have been repaired a bit as you look at some of these numbers early on. We'll have to see what suburban voters. I'd quarrel with someone who said a little bit about the black voters in Georgia. It was not necessarily black voters in Georgia. It was suburban and rural voters in Georgia that put Biden over, and he even gave the seats to the Democratic senators there. So as we get more and more numbers here over the next few minutes, it'll be very, very telling, because if Georgia and North Carolina stay with Trump, Trump needs that in his math. He can't do it without those states in reality. Kamala Harris was hoping for a flip there. You get a surprise there, and then the night takes on a little bit of a different pace and a different tone. So those are the numbers I'm looking most closely at, Brett, here in the next few minutes.
We've got about 30 seconds before we start our TikTok to the next call. Dana, what do you think?
I think that Florida is so interesting because Governor Ron DeSantis is such an effective governor and a great campaigner. And I think also that there are changes in Latino voters and generational changes. But I would also say this. When 75% of the country says you're on the wrong direction, you're going in the wrong direction, and their #1 issue is the economy, you should listen to them, because that's what it is.
Well, Miami-Dade was flipped by DeSantis. He lost it in his first governor's race, and then he won Miami-Dade in the second. So maybe we're seeing a little bit of that play out in Miami-Dade right now. We'll see.
Britt, do you want to do the TikTok sound for us?
I'm not sure I remember how.
We are coming up on the next poll closing, and it's a big one because North Carolina, we should start getting raw vote totals right away. North Carolina is one of the fastest states, even despite Hurricane Helene. They're doing a really great job, the Secretary of State's office there, as we wait for the poll closing right now. It is now 7:30 on the East Coast. Polls have just closed in 3 more states. North Carolina is the next state to watch, just like Georgia. It came down to the wire in the last presidential election. It has 16 electoral college votes, and it will be a decisive one, potentially. The Fox News decision desk says it's too early to call.
Also, too early to call Ohio, but former President Trump has a lead in our Fox News voter analysis. As we mentioned, we're also watching the Senate race there. Bernie Moreno is the GOP candidate running against Sherrod Brown. And we can say that Fox News does project that Trump will win West Virginia. Not a very big surprise there. Obviously, the former governor or the current governor is running for the Senate as well. So
we expect that to be a quick call as well. If you look at the race for 270, the Electoral College votes needed to win the presidency now ticking up with that last call, the former president at 23 and Vice President Harris at 3 throughout the night. That will go up as we make calls. The biggest story in West Virginia, as we said, is the Senate race, where longtime Senator Joe Manchin is retiring, Democrat, now independent. Fox News can project that Jim Justice will flip this seat to the Republicans. That win puts the GOP 1 seat away from an outright majority in the U.S. Senate, assuming they don't lose any seats along the way that they already hold.
Yes, exactly. So the Fox News decision desk says that it is too early to call another Republican target. Ohio, where the incumbent Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown, as I mentioned, fighting for his 4th term against Republican businessman Bernie Moreno. And we're watching that one very closely as well. That could potentially be another flip. It's a toss-up race at the moment. The balance of power looks like this in terms of what we have fed in so far into the data at this point. You've got 40 Republicans, 1 seat flipped. That's the West Virginia seat. Jim Justice will be the new senator. He was the former governor from the state of West Virginia, and Democrats have 29 right now. You can see a lot of spaces still to be filled in over on the Senate side.
We are following a number of gubernatorial races around the country. Turning to those races, Fox News can project that North Carolina's Democratic Attorney General Josh Stein will defeat Republican Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson. A lot of controversy in that race. It's not close now. We're making that call.
And in West Virginia, Republican Attorney General Patrick Morrisey will succeed Jim Justice as the state's 37th governor. He has wanted that spot for a long time. He's run before, and now Patrick Morrisey will be the governor in West Virginia. Let's go over to Bill Hemmer and get a sense of how all of this stacks up
that
on the
Florida
board.
Story is really interesting, Bill.
Yeah, it is. Why don't we start there this time? And good evening again, just past 7:30 here on the East Coast. I was looking at Miami right now. Miami-Dade, the last time as a county they had voted for a Republican president was 1988, George Bush, 41. And right now, you got 71% of the statewide voting, but you got 80% of the county voting here. And Trump's got a easy 10-point advantage right now over Kamala Harris. So we'll see how that holds up here. Another thing we're going to look at right now is Georgia. And, Georgia is one of these states that's gone through a bit of a realignment, kind of like North Carolina, kind of like Arizona and some others that we've looked at. And, in the blue wall a little bit right now, Trump did the trick 8 years ago. We'll see whether or not he can do it again this time. But I just want to take a glance at this because you got a lot of vote out there, guys. Now, we expect a lot of batches to come in quickly here in Georgia because they say they're going to count quickly. But right now, 8% of the statewide vote. One thing we're talking about the rurals. This down here is Brantley County. Now, this was Trump's best performing rural county in 2020. And he's doing a number right now again. I'll just go back to 2020, 4 years ago, and watch this. The percentage there was, so he's doing a tick better. Raw vote here, 6,200 4 years ago. Raw vote now in the same county, 4,900. So maybe that comes back to that conversation about, turnout and things like that throughout the rest of the country. But when you look at Georgia, I mean, let's look at the vote difference for Georgia, and we can show you a little of the realignment that we're talking about here. And if you look at this, right, all this over here, this is a dominant state for the Republican Party and had been for a long time. You think about George Bush's second term, right? He won that state by 16.5 points. It wasn't even on the map in terms of consideration, but slowly Georgia changed. And a lot of it changed for the metro area, the 26 counties that make up Atlanta. Here was Trump in 2016. I give it to him, right? 5 points 8 years ago. But things seemed to change in 2020 and change in a significant way when Joe Biden went in there and took the state by 0.2 percentage points, a raw vote of 11,779. All right. Now, so this is where we are now. And I'll just, with a lot of that vote out there, Trump's got a lead of 22 points, and that's going to change throughout the night. But we just want to let you know what's happening there. Let's look at the vote difference for North Carolina. Similar story. maybe less of an advantage for the Republicans, but this is all, this is all red. You look at what Bush and Kerry did in 2004. That was easy. That wasn't a battleground at all. This is where Barack Obama performed so well, took the Tar Heel state just by so much they're okay in North Carolina, but was able to pull it off. Let's come back to 2020 right now, and I can show you what I'm seeing there. Let's go ahead and clear this, all right? Yeah. So as you can see, like these states, they change. And it's a real part of this national conversation about where people move, where people choose to live, where people choose to work, go to school, et cetera. So we'll might like tag on to that throughout the night.
North Carolina, you look at the counties you are following, Wake County, Raleigh.
Yes.
There's just such a population shift. More than 1 million people have shifted down there, and it's a different crowd. So that's why maybe you have a different electorate in North Carolina that Democrats are looking to.
Yeah, I look at Wake County. We can show you on the board in a second here. I look at Guilford, too. That's Greensboro. A lot of folks campaigning there. Kamala Harris was there. Donald Trump was there. Young folks go there to go to school and to find a job as well. And we'll see about Mecklenburg, which is Charlotte. Mecklenburg, Carl, that's a county that Democrats have tried to really capture. And they're able to win the county, but not by big enough of a margin to capture the entire state. So in that sense, it's been somewhat elusive.
Carl perked up when you said Bush-Kerry. He really felt the old days.
It was a good moment, yeah. It was a good moment. But you're right, the change in it, like Mecklenburg, black turnout in Mecklenburg is below any other place I've seen in the South. Major county, the five major counties around Atlanta, Wake, Henrico, Richmond, Chesterfield, and Virginia. It's amazing, and I don't understand exactly why, but black turnout in Mecklenburg has kept the Democrats from winning the state.
Well, I just wanted, you had spoken earlier about North Carolina and Hurricane Helene and the impact on, I believe, 25 counties were affected by Hurricane Helene. And one of the early discussions was, a lot of those counties are red. Are they going to be able to vote? And then everyone felt like it was going to be okay. It looked like it was in good shape for
I'll show that to Martha here. And I don't know how much of that vote we've got in, but we're looking at this with virgin eyes here, okay? You're only 2% statewide. But what you're talking about, Martha, let me go ahead and draw this up here. All those 25 counties are west of Mecklenburg that we're talking about. They're west of Charlotte, okay? This is the blue dot in the western part of North Carolina. That's Buncombe County. That's Asheville. And that helped Joe Biden erase about a 43,000 net gain on behalf of Donald Trump. All the other 25 counties, Trump was up about 270,000. So he came out of these 25 counties that were so wrecked by this hurricane with a net of he lost 43 in Buncombe, a net of 220,000 votes. So let's go and clear this off and just refresh our memories here from 4 years ago. Here were the results, right? Trump won the state several days later, but a little less than 75,000 votes. So all this out here, it's going to matter. And what the Democratic governor, Roy Cooper, said is that he was going to put these mobile voting vans in western North Carolina to make sure that nobody gets ripped off from casting a vote on behalf of Helene.
Laura, the Harris campaign is pointing to schools like Appalachian State, the polling place in Boone County. They're saying schools in Pennsylvania and Nevada are huge lines. They're mobilizing young people. That's what they're sending out, at least now. What do you think?
15 polling places in Georgia have had to have extended hours because of that bomb threat that you guys were reporting on earlier, various bomb threats. And in Georgia, it's DeKalb County, Gwinnett, other key population centers. Will that affect the ultimate result in a place like Georgia? We'll find out. But Donald Trump this morning in West Palm Beach looked into the camera and he said, "Stay in line." Like it took him a while to sort of ask for people's votes over this campaign season.
Twitter tonight, he's still up on X saying, "Stay in line."
Yeah, stay in line. Don't get out of the line because Harris supporters were reporting in Pennsylvania, Lehigh University students, that they waited in line for 6 hours to vote. 6 hours, and that was confirmed by a bunch of other reporting. So people have to, a lot of people can't wait in line for that long. And so that could end up being something that both parties complain about in the end. But, we'll see.
Robert?
So, as you know, when we were all at the convention together, I said that Kamala Harris was the underdog and that Trump would win. And I didn't shift until maybe with Martha like 2 weeks ago. And the reason was the following. One, on the economy, yes, it's number one, but it went from Trump plus 15 to Trump plus 8. And so that was a big difference.
And some polls had it even tighter.
And some, I think Fox ended up at 6. And then the second thing was the money. Harris campaign raised $1 to $2 billion. All of a sudden, it wasn't just the blue wall. Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, North Carolina come into play. And Martha and I have spoken about it, not to make this a gender issue, but Arizona and Nevada do have reproductive rights on the line. So that makes a big difference on the gender vote. So listen, I'm not going to say I went from optimistic to nauseously optimistic. I'm going to stay at optimistic, but we're going to have to see what happens in Atlanta and Charlotte and some of the big cities that, you know, we're depending huge votes for Harris. But it doesn't feel as good yet.
But we have a lot of vote that is still outstanding, right, Carl?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, some of these smaller counties in Georgia and North Carolina will come in quickly, but the bigger counties where this will be settled will take a little while to get compiled.
But you'll be looking not only at how she's doing versus Biden, but how he's doing against himself, 2020 and 2016.
Right. And my suspicion is that we will see a pattern of he's doing better in rural areas and he's doing slightly worse in urban and suburban areas. And the key will end up being, the decider will be, if he continues to get 25% of the black male vote, this will be the best Republican performance in that group since at least 1960. And it will be powerful.
Okay, that's one to watch. Thank you, panel. The countdown is on to a slew of poll closings across the country, including the Big Kahuna. Pennsylvania, one of the biggest battleground prizes of the night. Our special coverage continues here on Fox next.